Hey everyone, guess what a crow's line is? It's the shortest distance from point A to point B. Think about that. You have to take various side streets to get to the best street. When you're driving, sometimes it seems like A to B is the quickest way to a destination. But as a cyclist, oh look, that's St. Joseph's Monastery in case anyone is interested. So guess where I am? I'm definitely not going to be going from point A to point B as a cyclist, but I will be going to point A to C to D and then to B. Because the whole idea is that you take the most scenic route when you're biking. That's the whole idea. So a crow's line should not be in a cyclist's vocabulary because one thing is going from point A to point B can sometimes mean you're going on roads with a lot of cars, and who really wants that, you know? And when you take detours and side streets, you get some really nice scenery, like this. A gang of birds, but it's not crows. Although a group of birds, of crows, would be called a murder of crows. And then you also have very nice, and a lot of times it's just empty, which is nice. And now we continue riding. Welcome to East Island, bought from the Indians by Robert Williams, June 22nd, 1667, home of J.P. Morgan. Look at that. You know, we have a little bit of history here. Welcome to the East Island Association. It's a beautiful area to bike. How about putting it in your mouth? So as you can see, these are all detours. Detours, detours, detours. Side streets. Places that have virtually no cars, quiet neighborhoods, nice trees, and houses that look like nobody lives here. That's the nice thing about Long Island, is that you could be riding and riding, and like I've said many times, it's like a giant park. And the only reason I'm able to hold my phone in one hand and bike on the other is because, well, there's hardly any cars. I have noticed one thing though. You know, the GoPro has an attachment where you have to bite down on it. Like you put the phone in your mouth. Not the phone in your mouth, but the GoPro piece in your mouth. And one thing I've noticed, I thought about it and I was like, what a stupid invention. Who's going to want to put a camera piece in their mouth? But I actually found myself putting this giant phone in my mouth as I was clipping in on my pedal because I didn't know where else to put the phone. So I may have to do it again when I'm switching. But this is anyway East Island. So thank God I'm going to edit this. But if you're wondering about detours, this is a nice little detour to take along the quiet streets of East Island, coming from Center Island. You know, we have a crow's line. Sometimes people think that they can take the straightest road even as a cyclist. And an example would be going straight down Union Turnpike, Queens. They think that's the best way to get from destination A to destination B, without even looking at the map to see all the side streets you can take by reducing the chances of you getting killed. But something I would never want to do. So we're going to continue here on our tour of East Island. Beautiful lake. Swimming is strictly prohibited. And I can guarantee you everyone's security camera right now is probably on me. There's one car coming now. See, I knew it was too good to be true. Whoa! Okay. Well, that was like, I must look like an idiot. A car to my right, a car to my left, and I'm holding a phone in my hand. Well, there was something. This is why sometimes drivers don't like cyclists. They must be like, what is that idiot doing? Oh well. Anyway, this is very scenic. But one thing I would say is that when the tide is low, everywhere over here is very muddy. And it looks kind of ugly. But today it's not. So for instance, over here would be just muddy and marshy. And I always thought like this area would be perfect if you could throw in a couple of mountains in here, and if we didn't have that muddy, marshy kind. But who am I to critique, where JP Morgan lived? I'm just passing through. But if I were to, think about spending like maybe a couple $1 million on a house here, I would be thinking, do I really want to live, where there's so much muddy, marshy stuff around? I'm not so sure. So you be the judge and decide. If you have a couple of $1 million, what would you do? Would you like mountains and streams, or would you like muddy, marshy stuff and trees? It's a lot to think about, if you're going to buy property, especially when you've got millions, folks. So these are random thoughts, you got to think about when you're cycling, and maybe even when you're not cycling.